I don't talk about this often, it still feels raw, like a wound that never quite scarred over clean. My name's Serafina, and for a long, long time, I believed that if I just gave enough, loved enough, did enough for my family, loyalty would be my shield. But when the betrayal finally came, it wasn't a loud, dramatic crash. It was quiet, like being slowly, meticulously erased. If you've ever poured your soul into someone who hollowed you out, maybe this story will resonate. Because what they didn't understand was that in the silence, I found a strength I never knew I had. Growing up in our little New England town, life was, well, it was ordinary, I guess. Solidly middle class, until things started to fray around the edges when I was in my teens. My dad, Arthur, taught history at the local high school. He had this quiet passion for it, but teachers' salaries, they don't exactly make you rich. My mom, Eleanor, ran a small catering business right out of our kitchen. Our house always smelled of something comforting, baking bread, simmering stews. We weren't wealthy, not by a long shot, but there was always enough. Enough love, enough food, enough for what mattered. My sister, Stella, came along when I was 4. Despite that gap, we were close. I was the serious one, the planner, always with my nose in a book. Stella, she was the artist, the dreamer, always chasing butterflies. Mom used to laugh and say, "Between the two of you, we've got one perfect daughter." If only life had stayed that simple. Things took a sharp turn when I was a sophomore at Metro State University. Dad's back started giving him serious trouble, the kind of pain that makes it hard to even stand. His teaching hours got cut, drastically. Around the same time, a nasty recession hit, and Mom's catering orders just evaporated. That comfortable life we knew suddenly felt like walking a high wire without a net. I was studying finance on a partial scholarship, but I had to pick up 30 hours a week at a diner near campus just to make ends meet, all while trying to keep my grades from tanking. Stella was still in high school then, mostly sheltered from the financial storm clouds gathering over us. "Sarah, honey, we're so proud of you," Mom would tell me on our Sunday calls, her voice a mix of warmth and a worry she couldn't quite hide. "You work so hard. You're going to go so far." I clung to those words. I was fiercely focused on building a future, a secure one. While my classmates were out at parties, I was chasing internships, networking, trying to learn everything I could about the financial world. By the time I graduated, I actually had 3 job offers. I took a position at a respected investment firm in the city. That first salary, it felt like a fortune compared to what my family had been surviving on. I rented a tiny walk-up in a bustling part of the city with a college friend. Nothing fancy, just a place to sleep. But as my career started to gain traction, my parents' financial situation just kept getting worse. Property taxes went up. Their house, nearly 30 years old by then, was starting to show its age. A leaky roof, an ancient furnace, things they couldn't even dream of affording to fix. Dad's back pain intensified, forcing him into part-time work that barely covered the bills. Mom's catering business was a distant memory. Stella was at community college, studying art and living at home, but her financial contribution was minimal. I'd visit once a month, and each time, my heart would sink a little further. The peeling paint on the porch, the faint, ominous stain on the dining room ceiling, the anxiety etched deeper into my parents' faces. Then, when I was 27, about 3 years into my career, Dad called. I could hear the tears in his voice before he even spoke. "Sarah," he choked out, "we're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank, they're talking foreclosure. We've tried everything, honey. Everything." My blood ran cold. The thought of them losing our family home, the place of every Christmas morning, every birthday cake, every childhood memory, it was unbearable. That night, I barely slept. I spread my financial statements out on my small kitchen table. I'd been saving aggressively for a down payment on my own place, but I realized I had enough to cover their overdue payments, at least for now. After a long, serious talk with a financial advisor, I came up with a plan. The next weekend, I drove out to their place. "It'll help with the mortgage," I told them, sitting them down at that same worn kitchen table. "But we need to do this formally." My idea was straightforward. I'd take over all the mortgage payments, pay it off completely. In return, after a set period, the house would be legally transferred to me. It would be my investment, my security for the future. Tears welled in their eyes. "Oh, Sarah, you've always been our rock," Mom whispered, her hand clutching mine. We drew up a simple contract. Nothing overly complicated, just clear terms. After 7 years of me making all the payments, the house would legally become mine. They could, of course, live there for the rest of their lives rent-free. That was always part of the understanding. I also committed to funding all the necessary renovations. So, for the next 7 years, like clockwork, I sent $1,200 every single month. I replaced that leaky roof. I had the ancient electrical system completely overhauled. I gutted and renovated the main bathroom, the one with the perpetually dripping faucet. I installed new energy-efficient windows throughout the house. Every improvement, every single receipt, was carefully documented. My investment. During this time, I climbed the ladder at work, eventually becoming a senior financial analyst. And finally, I'd saved enough to buy a little place of my own. But instead of some slick city condo, I found myself drawn to the mountains. I bought a rustic 2-bedroom cabin near Willow Creek Lake, deep in the Vermont Green Mountains. It needed a lot of work, sure, but I fell completely in love with the knotty pine interior, the big stone fireplace, and the incredible, profound sense of peace that enveloped it. My weekends became a blur of sanding floors, painting walls, and slowly, lovingly, creating my own sanctuary, a world away from the relentless pace of city life. While all this was happening, Stella was drifting. She bounced between retail jobs and half-finished art projects. She'd live with roommates, then move back in with Mom and Dad when things didn't work out. I worried about her lack of direction, but my parents would just wave it away. "Oh, she's just finding herself, Sarah. Not everyone has your drive." Then, when Stella was 28, everything changed. She met Marcus Thorne. Marcus was 33, worked in commercial real estate, and came from a very wealthy family in Connecticut. He was handsome, undeniably charming, and he swept Stella off her feet with expensive gifts, fancy dinners, and whirlwind weekend trips. From the moment they met him, my parents were utterly smitten. Dad suddenly had a buddy to watch sports with, someone who understood his obscure historical references. Mom just glowed whenever Marcus lavished praise on her cooking, which he did often and with great flair. Family dinners, when I could make them, started to feel like showcases for Marcus's business successes, his connections, his supposedly brilliant insights. "Sarah, isn't Marcus just wonderful for Stella?" Mom would gush during one of my visits, her eyes shining. "He's so established, so mature. He knows what he wants." I try to smile, but honestly, something about Marcus just rubbed me the wrong way. Behind that polished charm, I'd catch these fleeting glimpses of something cold, almost calculating, especially when he thought no one was looking. He'd subtly correct Stella's table manners in front of everyone or interrupt her stories to steer the conversation back to himself. Little things, maybe, but they set off warning bells in my head. Around this time, I met Liam Hayes. He was my cabin's nearest neighbor, a wildlife photographer with the kindest eyes I'd ever seen and an easy, rumbling laugh that just made you feel good. Liam lived year-round in his family's old vacation home. Our friendship started when he helped me wrestle a new floating dock into the lake one sweltering afternoon. It blossomed from there, over crackling campfires, shared bottles of wine, and quiet kayak trips across the glass-still water at dawn. With Liam, I could just be. I could breathe. He never compared me to anyone, never measured my worth by my job title or my bank account. When I finally confided in him about my uneasy feelings about Marcus, Liam just listened. No judgment, just steady support. "Trust your instincts, Sarah," he advised, his gaze thoughtful. "You know your sister." As my relationship with Liam deepened, my parents became even more enamored with Marcus. He was their golden boy. When I mentioned that I needed to finalize the last few renovations on the house before the ownership transfer, which was fast approaching, only 6 months left on our 7-year agreement, Dad would suddenly find something fascinating out the window and change the subject. When I brought up the contract we had all signed, Mom would get this vague, flustered look and say, "Oh, Serafina, families shouldn't be so businesslike." "Well, figure it all out, honey." For the very first time, a genuine knot of unease tightened in my stomach about my investment, about their promises. But with the finish line in sight, I tried to push those worries aside. I focused on completing the renovations I'd promised, trusting that, in the end, they'd do the right thing. Then, after dating for just 8 months, Marcus proposed to Stella. The diamond ring he gave her must have cost him a small fortune. Stella called me, practically screaming with excitement, and I genuinely felt happy for her sheer, unadulterated joy. My sister had always dreamed of a fairy tale romance, and on the surface, Marcus seemed to be delivering exactly that. "Sarah, you won't believe it. We're thinking about a spring wedding at Mom and Dad's house." Stella gushed over the phone. "The backyard will be absolutely perfect once the cherry trees bloom." The wedding planning kicked into overdrive and quickly consumed my parents. Mom practically abandoned what was left of her struggling catering business to focus full-time on being the mother of the bride. Dad spent his weekends clearing garden beds, repainting fences, obsessing over the lawn. The backyard, the one I'd helped landscape and plant just 2 summers ago, was being completely transformed. Marcus's parents visited from Connecticut, bringing along their interior designer friend, who started making suggestions for improvements to our family home. Suddenly, the kitchen backsplash I'd painstakingly installed wasn't quite right. The living room furniture, perfectly comfortable, needed updating. My carefully chosen paint colors, the ones I'd spent weeks deliberating over, apparently weren't wedding appropriate. "Sarah, don't be so sensitive," Mom said with a dismissive wave of her hand when I tried to voice my concerns about the escalating expenses, many of which seemed to be falling on Mom and Dad. Marcus' family is used to certain standards, and this is Stella's big day, after all. As maid of honor, I tried my best to support Stella while also gently suggesting some more budget-friendly alternatives. But whenever Marcus was around, my suggestions were brushed aside with a condescending smile. "Don't worry your pretty little head about money, Sarah," Marcus would say, his tone dripping with false sweetness. "I've got connections. I can get us some amazing deals." Funny thing about those amazing deals, they always seem to involve my parents shelling out for premium services from Marcus's friends and business associates. About 3 months before the wedding, I drove out for a weekend of supposed planning. I found Stella sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. Marcus thinks we should postpone our honeymoon," she sniffled, twisting a napkin in her hands. "So we can put that money toward redoing the master bathroom." That master bathroom renovation had been my Christmas gift to my parents the previous year. I'd hired a contractor friend who gave me a great discount, and I'd even taken time off work to help with the demolition myself. He says it's embarrassing when his friends visit," Stella whispered. Stella, do you want to postpone your honeymoon? I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. I just want Marcus to be happy, she replied, her eyes darting away from mine. Later that weekend, I was in the kitchen getting some ice, and I overheard a conversation between my father and Marcus out on the deck. They were grilling, and I paused when I heard my name. Serafina's been generous, no doubt about it, Dad was saying, his voice low. But she's always been, well, practical to a fault. Sometimes family needs to be about more than just contracts and obligations, you know. Absolutely, Arthur. I couldn't agree more, Marcus replied smoothly. His voice was like silk, but there was an edge to it. And really, what does Serafina need with this house anyway? She's got her career, that little cabin of hers up in the mountains. Stella deserves security, too. A real home. My blood ran ice cold. Were they seriously discussing my agreement? The house I'd been faithfully paying for and pouring my own money into renovating for nearly 7 years? Later that evening, when Stella was busy, I confronted my parents in their bedroom. I kept my voice low. I overheard Dad talking with Marcus about the house, I said, looking directly at them. Our agreement is still in place, right? The transfer is supposed to happen after my final payment next month. Mom looked at Dad, a nervous flutter in her eyes, before she finally spoke. Honey, we've been thinking. You're doing so well for yourself, and Stella and Marcus, they'll need a place to start their married life. My chest tightened. They're planning to live here? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Nothing's decided yet, Sarah, Dad said quickly, a little too quickly. Let's not worry about all this right now. The wedding is the priority. Let's just get through the wedding. Their vague reassurances did absolutely nothing to calm the growing anxiety churning in my gut. That night, I couldn't sleep. I called Liam from my childhood bedroom, the floral wallpaper suddenly feeling suffocating. I think they're planning to back out of our agreement, I whispered into the phone, tears pricking my eyes. 7 years of payments, Liam. All those renovations. It was supposed to be mine. Liam's steady, calm voice on the other end of the line helped ground me, even just a little. Document everything, Sarah, he said, his tone firm but gentle. Find that contract. Gather all your payment records, every receipt. But maybe wait until after the wedding to push the issue. Give Stella her day. I knew he was right. As much as it pained me, despite my deep misgivings about Marcus and my parents' infuriating evasiveness, I didn't want to spoil my sister's wedding. I kept reminding myself, there was a signed agreement. I had records. Legally, I was protected. Or so I thought. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, one of those glorious spring days where the air itself felt hopeful. Cherry blossoms drifted like pink confetti. The backyard, I had to admit, was transformed. White chairs in neat rows, floral arches dripping with roses, twinkling fairy lights strung everywhere. Photographers buzzed around as we got ready in Stella's childhood bedroom. You look beautiful, Stell, I told my sister, and I meant it, helping her with her delicate lace veil. She truly was radiant. Do you think Marcus will like it? She asked, a flicker of that familiar anxiety in her eyes. He'll be speechless, I assured her, pushing aside my unease. The ceremony was lovely. Stella and Marcus exchanged vows beneath the blooming cherry trees. When Dad walked Stella down the aisle, his eyes shone, and Mom sobbed openly from the front row. In that moment, despite everything, a wave of love for my family, complicated as it was, washed over me. At the reception, I gave my maid of honor speech. I celebrated Stella, our bond, and even managed to welcome Marcus with what I hoped sounded like genuine warmth. After dinner, it was time for my father's speech. He tapped his glass, a proud smile on his face. Today isn't just about giving away my younger daughter, Dad began, his voice thick with emotion. My heart did a little flip. It's about welcoming Marcus truly into our family. He then launched into a long, almost fawning tribute to Marcus, his character, his business acumen, how he'd elevated our Stella. I shifted uncomfortably. It was all about Marcus. And so, Dad concluded, raising his glass, a triumphant gleam in his eye, "Eleanor and I want to make a very special announcement. A wedding gift. A gift that symbolizes our absolute faith in this union, in this wonderful young man, and in the future they will build together." Mom joined Dad at the microphone, beaming. "Marcus and Stella," she said, her voice ringing out, "as you begin your life together, you need a solid foundation, a family home, a place to build your future." My stomach dropped. I think I stopped breathing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. "We're giving you this house," Dad announced, his voice booming. "Our family home. It's now yours." Applause erupted. It sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Marcus stood, pulling a stunned-looking Stella up beside him, his face a mask of triumphant satisfaction. "We're overwhelmed by your generosity," he said smoothly, his arm possessively around Stella's waist. The world just spun. 7 years. 7 years of my life, my money, $1,200 a month. Countless weekends. The contract, promising the house would be mine next month, all of it erased. I sat there, frozen. Across the table, Liam, who had come as my guest, reached for my hand. His eyes, full of shock and concern, said everything. Somehow, I maintained my composure through the cake cutting, the first dances. When there was finally a lull, I pulled my parents aside into the now cluttered kitchen. "How could you?" asked, my voice trembling. "We had an agreement. 7 years. That house was supposed to be mine. Next month." Mom looked uncomfortable. Dad just sighed, that weary, put-upon sigh I knew so well. "Serafina, we know you've helped us tremendously. But look at your life compared to your sister's. You have a successful career, savings, your cabin. Stella and Marcus, they need a foundation. Marcus needs my house," I repeated, my voice rising. "The house I've been paying for since I was 27? It was never really your house, Sarah," Mom said defensively. "It was always our family home. A family home you were about to lose to foreclosure, until I stepped in." I reminded them, my voice finally cracking. "We signed a contract. A legal document. Families shouldn't be about contracts, Serafina," Dad said, his voice taking on a patronizing tone, echoing Marcus's earlier words. "We raised you better than that." The injustice of it all was like a punch to the chest. "So, I'm just supposed to accept that you've given away 7 years of my financial investments to a man you've known for barely a year? Marcus will take good care of the property," Mom insisted, as if that addressed anything. "And they'll always have a place for us, when we're older." "What about my place?" I choked out, tears finally spilling. "What about what was mine?" Dad's expression hardened. "I think you're being selfish, Serafina," he said coldly. "This is Stella's wedding day. Pull yourself together and try to be happy for your sister." Just then, the wedding planner bustled in. Mom hurried out, relieved. Dad gave me one last, deeply disappointed look before following. I stood there alone in the kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the wreckage of my trust. 7 years gone. Apparently, I was the selfish one. I couldn't face the crowd. I texted Liam, "Need to leave. Can't do this. Explain later." Then I slipped out the side door, got into my car, and just drove. Tears streamed down my face. I headed straight for my cabin, my sanctuary, the only place that still felt unequivocally mine. 3 hours later, I was sitting on my dock, staring numbly at the dark, silent waters of Willow Creek Lake. Liam arrived around midnight. Had made excuses for me, then driven straight from the wedding. They gave away my house. Liam, I whispered, as he gently wrapped a thick blanket around my trembling shoulders. 7 years, they just gave it away. Like I was nothing. He just held me as I finally broke down, sobbing against his chest, the grief and betrayal pouring out of me until exhaustion took over. That night, curled up on my cabin sofa, I made a silent promise to myself. Never again. Never again would I let anyone, not even my own family, take advantage of my generosity, my loyalty. Never again. For a solid week, I holed up in my cabin. I called in sick to work for the first time in my career. I replayed that horrific announcement, my father's booming voice, Marcus' smug smile, my mother's beaming face, their casual, cruel dismissal in the kitchen. My phone blew up. Stella texted, "Where did you go?"
Call me.
Later, Sarah, are you mad? Please call. My parents left voicemails, starting concerned, then quickly veering into irritated. Serafina, this silent treatment is childish. Dad's voice clipped. We need to talk about this like adults. The irony was a bitter pill. Liam drove up midweek with groceries and his quiet, unwavering support. He worked remotely from my cabin while I alternated between pacing in a silent fury and staring out at the lake. They made me feel like I was crazy, I told Liam one evening by the fire. Like I was unreasonable for expecting them to honor our agreement.
Selfish.
It's called gaslighting, Sarah, Liam said simply. They know they're wrong, so they're trying to make it your fault. At the end of that week, I returned to the city. Work was a temporary relief. 2 weeks after the wedding, Mom called. Sarah, we miss you, honey, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. This silent treatment has gone on long enough. I'm not giving you the silent treatment, Mom, I replied, my voice even, devoid of the emotions still churning inside. I'm processing the fact that you gave away something that was contractually, legally supposed to be mine. Oh, that contract, Mom dismissed with an airy wave of her hand, as if I could see it. That was just a formality, Sarah. We never really intended to give you the house. The casual admission stunned me. Then why? I finally managed. Why sign it? Why let me pay the mortgage for 7 years? Pour tens of thousands into renovating it? Well, we needed help at the time. Obviously, she admitted, a hint of defensiveness. And you were doing so well financially. We knew you could afford it. The conversation devolved. She insisted I could absorb the loss. She prattled on about Stella and Marcus needing a start. When I pointed out Marcus likely earned more than I did, she changed tactics. You've always been so independent, Sarah. We never thought you'd actually want the family home. You have your little cabin. Crystal clear. They had always intended to break our agreement. My support had just been a convenient stopgap. Now, with Marcus on the scene, I was disposable. I discreetly consulted Olivia, a sharp lawyer friend from college. The contract, she confirmed, had teeth. Real legal teeth. But suing my own parents, the thought made me sick. So, instead, I made a practical decision. I formally, immediately, ended all financial support. The monthly check stopped. I removed myself as an authorized user on their credit card. I withdrew from the family cell phone plan. A clean cut. For 3 long months, I maintained only minimal contact. I declined invitations to Sunday dinners, begged off Stella's housewarming party, held, of course, at what should have been my house. Work was my refuge. Weekends at the cabin with Liam slowly began to heal my spirit. As Thanksgiving approached, Mom began her annual campaign of holiday guilt. It's the first Thanksgiving with Marcus as part of the family, she emphasized. Stella really wants everyone together. It'll be at the cabin for Thanksgiving, I replied firmly. Liam and I are cooking together. Oh, well, you can bring Liam, too, of course, she offered.
No, Mom.
I still need space. Maybe Christmas. After I hung up, a surprising weight lifted. Setting boundaries. It was new territory for me, the perpetual family fixer. And it felt good. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I left work early, hoping to beat the traffic. As I rounded the final curve to my cabin, I saw an unfamiliar car. Then my heart lurched. It was my father's old sedan. Dread washed over me. I parked and cautiously approached. Through the window, I saw movement. My hand trembled as I inserted my key. I pushed the door open to find my parents. In my living room, suitcases splayed open. Clothes already in my small closet.
Serafina?
Mom exclaimed, her face breaking into a wide, inappropriate smile. There you are. We were just wondering when you'd arrive. I stood frozen. What are you doing here? I finally managed. How did you even get in? Dad held up a key. Remember you had that spare made last summer? We kept it just in case of emergencies. This doesn't look like an emergency, I observed, my eyes sweeping over their luggage. This looks like you're moving in. They exchanged a guilty glance. Well, you see, honey, Dad began, we've had a few financial setbacks. The wedding more expensive than we anticipated. And with giving the house to Stella and Marcus, Mom chimed in, well, we're a bit strapped. Marcus, bless his heart, he suggested we might stay here for a little while. Just until we get back on our feet. The audacity. It stole my breath. They'd given away my house, and now, because they couldn't afford their lifestyle, they expected to move into my cabin. Marcus suggested you move into my cabin? I repeated slowly. Well, yes. He pointed out you're rarely here, except on weekends, Sarah, Dad said, attempting a reasonable tone. It's just sitting empty. I set my purse down very carefully. Let me make sure I understand this, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You gave away the house I paid for, and now you want to live in my cabin, rent-free, because you can't afford your own housing? Oh, Sarah, don't be so dramatic, Mom sighed. It's not like we're asking to take it from you, just to share it. Temporarily. How temporarily? I asked. They exchanged another glance. Well, until we figure things out, Dad hedged. Maybe a year or so.
A year.
In my personal space. My sanctuary. Without asking. Without a hint of remorse. Just entitlement. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice quiet, hard as steel. What? Mom looked genuinely shocked. Get your things. Pack them up. And get out of my cabin.
Now.
Serafina, be reasonable, Dad started. Reasonable? My voice rose. The dam had broken. Was it reasonable to give away a house I paid for? To break a legal contract? To dismiss my feelings? Or maybe it was reasonable to use my spare key to move into my private property without my permission. They stared, stunned. Were your parents, Sarah? Mom said, her voice trembling. Yes, you are, I acknowledged, my voice shaking now with anger. And I've spent my entire adult life trying to take care of you. I paid your mortgage. I renovated your home. I supplemented your income. And how did you repay that? By giving away what was legally, morally, and ethically mine. Dad's face darkened. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? I shot back. Besides take, and take, and take? Just then, the cabin door opened. Liam walked in, arms full of groceries. He stopped short. Sarah, everything okay? He asked, his eyes finding mine. This is a family matter, young man, Dad said curtly. Liam looked to me. I took his hand. Liam is my family, I said firmly, looking back at my parents. And this is my cabin, which you both need to leave. Tonight. You put your own parents out on Thanksgiving weekend? Mom asked, indignant. You put yourselves out when you gave away the house that was supposed to be mine, I replied. Your current housing situation is a consequence of your own choices. Liam quietly intervened. There's a very nice in about 20 minutes down the road. I can call and make sure they have a room. Slowly, the realization dawned on them. I wasn't backing down. The old Serafina was gone. They wordlessly repacked. Liam discreetly made the reservation. When Dad started to take a set of my grandmother's antique china, I stepped forward.
Those aren't yours to take, Dad.
They were your grandmother's. Mom protested. Yes. And she left them to me in her will. An hour later, it was done. Liam drove them to the inn. I sat on my dock, shaking with adrenaline, anger, and a strange, unfamiliar sense of empowerment. When Liam returned, he just sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders, offering silent support. Later that evening, Stella called, her voice tight. What's going on, Sarah? Mom and Dad just called me, crying from someone near your cabin. They said you kicked them out. I took a deep breath and explained everything. The wedding, finding them in my cabin. A long silence. I didn't know, Sarah, Stella finally said, her voice small, shaky. About the contract, the payments, they just said they wanted to give us the house as a surprise. Did Marcus know about my agreement? I asked. Another pause. He mentioned something once about you helping them out, but he made it sound like just family helping family. Nothing binding. It was a signed contract, Stella, I said. 7 years of payments, thousands in renovations. Oh God, her voice cracked. Sarah, I am so sorry. For the first time since that horrible wedding, I felt a flicker of connection with my sister. It's not your fault, Stell, if they didn't tell you. Marcus, he kept saying we should encourage Mom and Dad to stay at your cabin, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. He said since you had 2 properties and we only had 1, it was only fair. The manipulation ran even deeper than I'd imagined. Marcus hadn't just passively accepted a gift, had been orchestrating. After we hung up, I poured out the whole story to Liam. I think it's time to consider your legal options, Sarah, he suggested gently. Not to be vindictive, but to protect yourself and get some acknowledgement. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day, I called Olivia. She listened patiently and agreed to review my documents. Just making that call lifted a huge weight. Liam and I prepared our Thanksgiving feast. Quiet, just us, but filled with gratitude. The morning after Thanksgiving, my parents texted, "When can we come back to the cabin?" I responded immediately, "That won't be possible. The cabin is not available to you. I can help you research affordable housing." Dad called, furious, then wheedling, "Sarah, you can't just leave us stranded. What exactly have you done for me recently, Dad?" I asked calmly. The old guilt trips no longer found purchase. "You're twisting things, Sarah. I would have been happy to help if I'd been asked, if my contributions hadn't been dismissed," I countered. "You're being selfish and ungrateful," he accused. "What I want, Dad, is for you to respect my property and my boundaries. The cabin is not an option. Period." Mom got on, her voice wobbling. "I just don't understand why you're being so cold, Sarah." "Mom, I'm not being cold. I'm being clear. And you didn't give me everything. I worked hard for what I have. So now you're keeping score?" She sniffed.
No, Mom.
Keeping score would be reminding you I've given you over $100,000. I'm not even asking for that back. I'm simply stating you cannot live in my cabin. The conversation went nowhere until I ended it. Liam witnessed it all.
You did great, he said.
You stayed calm, clear, and held your boundary. Later, Liam drove my parents to retrieve their car.
They refused to speak to me.
As they drove away, I felt relief, sadness, and a surprising strength. The following week, I met with Olivia. I brought everything: the contract, payment records, renovation receipts, photos. "This is a very solid agreement, Serafina," she said, impressed. "Your parents clearly breached it. You absolutely have grounds for legal action." "I don't necessarily want to sue my parents, Olivia," I clarified. "I just want some recognition." "Sometimes," Olivia explained, "the threat of legal action is enough. Let me draft a formal demand letter." The letter detailed the breach, my contributions, and proposed a settlement. My parents would compensate me for 60% of what ID poured into the house, roughly $75,000. The response was explosive. Dad called, shouting. Mom enlisted relatives to paint me as a greedy daughter. My Aunt Carol called, saying I was breaking my mother's heart. I forwarded all communications to Olivia. "This isn't about the money, Liam," I explained after a tearful call from my godmother. "It's about acknowledgement. They can't just erase 7 years." Meanwhile, Stella called several times, anxious. "Sarah, things are getting weird here," she confided. "Marcus keeps going on about fighting your claims. But then, I found him going through Mom and Dad's financial papers. He was looking for something."
"What?"
I asked, a new concern gnawing in my stomach. "I don't know," she whispered. When I asked, he got angry. He said I didn't understand complex business matters. "He's been different, Sarah, since we got married. So controlling about money. So critical." "That sounds really difficult, Stell," I said carefully. "I keep thinking about what you said," she continued, "about boundaries and honoring agreements. I don't think Marcus respects either." These conversations, painful as they were, started to build a fragile bridge between us. 3 weeks after Olivia's letter, my parents' new lawyer contacted her with a counteroffer, $35,000, framed as a gift, with no admission of wrongdoing. After much soul-searching, I accepted. The money wasn't the most important thing. The reluctant acknowledgement, however disguised, was something. I donated $10,000 to a local senior housing program. The rest went into my investment account, earmarked for a future home, solely mine. My parents and I maintained chilly, minimal contact through the holidays. I declined their hesitant Christmas invitation, sending gifts by mail. Liam and I had a quiet, peaceful Christmas at the cabin, then visited his wonderful family in Vermont, where I was welcomed with open arms. January brought an unexpected call from Stella. "Sarah, can we meet for coffee?" Just us. We met at a quiet little bakery. Stella looked thinner, shadows under her eyes. "Marcus is furious about the settlement," she said. "He keeps saying that money was meant for our house renovations." "It was compensation, Stella," I corrected gently, "for 7 years of payments I made." "I know that now," she nodded.
Sarah?
"I think I made a terrible mistake. Marcus, he isn't who I thought he was." Over the next hour, she poured out a distressing story. Marcus monitored her spending, criticized her friends, had unpredictable mood swings. Had pressured her to quit her job. Had convinced my parents to give them the house, then began expensive renovations that erased our childhood memories. "He wants to refinance the house now," she confided, her voice trembling, "to pay for even more." When I suggested we wait, he said I was being financially naive. I listened, my heart aching for her, recognizing the signs of emotional manipulation and financial control. "What do you want to do, Stell?" I asked softly. I don't know yet," she admitted, tears welling. "But I wanted you to know. I understand now why you were so hurt. The house, it meant something to you beyond just money, didn't it? It was a promise." Her understanding healed something deep inside me. "Thank you for seeing that, Stell. You're the strongest person I know, Sarah," she said. "I think I need some of that strength now." As winter turned to spring, Stella and I began to rebuild our fractured relationship. I was careful not to push her about Marcus, but offered unwavering support. By March, my parents had found a small apartment. Our interactions remained formal but civil. They never directly apologized, but they stopped vilifying me, which was progress. My relationship with Liam only deepened. Weekends at the cabin were our sanctuary. "You know what impresses me most about you through all this, Sarah?" Liam said one evening. "You didn't let this break you. You stood up for yourself, fought for what was right, but still managed to leave the door open a crack for healing." In that moment, I realized how far I'd come. The betrayal had forced me to define my boundaries, find my voice. 6 months after Stella's disastrous wedding, Liam and I were opening up the cabin for the season. "What do you think about extending the deck?" Liam suggested. I smiled, loving how easily I could imagine our lives unfolding together. My career had flourished. The boundary-setting skills learned with my family translated well professionally. Therapy was invaluable. "Family patterns are incredibly powerful," Sarah, my therapist, observed. "Breaking them requires tremendous courage." I maintained limited contact with my parents. They never truly acknowledged the depth of the betrayal, but they stopped pushing. The most significant change was with Stella. She reached out more, her unease with Marcus growing. "Ethan got so angry last night," she confided, her voice hushed. She meant Marcus, a slip of the tongue from previous trauma or a placeholder name she used sometimes when talking about him. "When I bought new art supplies without consulting him first. $30 watercolors, Sarah. That seems like a really outsized reaction, Stell," I offered. Over subsequent weeks, she shared more. Marcus isolated her, criticized her, tracked her. Then in April, Stella called, breathless. "Sarah, I found something." I was looking for tax documents in Marcus's desk. He has a separate bank account. A secret one. My office door closed, dread tightening. "How much money, Stell?" "He's been transferring money from our joint account into it. $3,000 a month since we got married. That's most of what Mom and Dad gave us for the wedding. And credit card statements in his name, huge purchases, trips I never went on." My analyst brain calculated. Over $20,000 hidden in 7 months. "There's more," she continued, a new, steely edge to her voice. "I found emails between him and some real estate investor. They're talking about flipping the property after the renovations. Our house, Sarah. The family home." Marcus's long game was sickeningly clear. Secure the house, use family money to renovate, sell for profit, and leave Stella with nothing. "What do you want to do, Stella?" I asked, my voice urgent. "I want out, Sarah," she said, firm, resolute. "I've been so blind, but am seeing clearly now." Over the next 3 weeks, Stella and I, with Liam's quiet help, developed her exit strategy. I connected her with Olivia. Stella meticulously gathered documentation. Can I stay with you in the city for a while?" she asked. "Of course, Stell. My spare room is yours." On a Tuesday, when Marcus was out of state, Stella left. She packed her essentials, left a lawyer-approved letter, and drove to my apartment. When she arrived, eyes red-rimmed but chin high, I embraced her. "You did it, Stell." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "I kept hearing his voice, but then I remembered watching you, Sarah, stand up to Mom and Dad at the cabin. And I thought if my sister could do that, maybe I could leave his lies." The aftermath was stormy. Marcus raged, pleaded, threatened. My parents initially sided with him, convinced Stella was being rash. How could you encourage this, Serafina? Mom demanded. He was financially exploiting her. Mom, I stated calmly. There's proof. That can't be right, Dad interjected. Ask to see the bank accounts, Dad, I suggested. Their defense of Marcus crumbled when confronted with Skylar's evidence. Dad called a week later, his voice subdued. We may have misjudged the situation with Marcus, Sarah. And Marcus? I asked. We're beginning to see some very concerning patterns. Stella stayed with me for 3 months. She rebuilt her confidence, found part-time work, started therapy. The divorce proceedings moved forward. My relationship with Noah solidified. He supported both of us. By early summer, my parents fully switched allegiance to Stella. They started visiting my apartment, awkward at first, but trying. We made a terrible mistake with Marcus, Sarah, Dad admitted one day on my balcony. We wanted so badly to believe Stella had found security. We ignored your warning signs. He paused. And before that with the house. Your house, Serafina. We were wrong. We had an agreement, a promise, and we broke it. There's no excuse. The belated acknowledgement eased something in my chest. Yes, Dad, I said quietly, you did. I don't expect you to forgive us overnight, he said, regret in his eyes. But I hope you know we're trying to do better. It was a start. I appreciate that, Dad. As Stella's divorce continued, Marcus's facade crumbled. Chloe was optimistic about securing Stella's full interest in the house. On a perfect August evening at the cabin, Liam and I sat on the new extended deck. Stella was visiting, sleeping peacefully inside. I have something I want to ask you, Sarah, Liam said, his hand reaching for mine. He produced a small, carved wooden box. This place, he began, this cabin, it's become the heart of our story. It's where you found your incredible strength. He opened the box. Inside, a simple, breathtaking ring, a deep blue sapphire, like the lake, surrounded by tiny diamonds. Serafina, he said, his voice husky, will you marry me? Tears, happy tears, filled my eyes. Yes. Oh, Liam. Yes. Absolutely. Later, celebrating on the dock, I reflected on the tumultuous journey. The betrayal that nearly broke me had forced me to grow. The house I lost had made way for a future with Liam, built on genuine love. The cabin, my sanctuary, became the foundation for a new kind of family. 1 year after Stella's wedding, life was transformed. Liam and I were planning our own small, lakeside ceremony. Stella finalized her divorce, kept the family home, though she considered selling it for a fresh start. Too many painful memories there now, Sarah, she explained. She offered to split the proceeds, but I declined. Use it to build your new life, Stell. Your freedom is worth more. My relationship with my parents remained a work in progress. Trust rebuilds slowly. They moved into a senior apartment complex, adapting to a simpler life. Our family gatherings were smaller, more authentic. I never properly thanked you, Sarah, Mom said quietly one day, helping me with wedding invitations, for taking Stella in. You were there for her when we failed her. She's my sister, Mom. Mom nodded, tears in her eyes. You're a better person than we raised you to be, Sarah, she whispered. You became that all on your own. The unprompted acknowledgement touched me. I think we all learn and grow, Mom, I said gently. Noah and I merged our lives thoughtfully. My promotion brought flexibility. Therapy remained vital. You've broken a significant generational pattern, Sarah, Dr. Ramirez observed. That's monumental. My worth wasn't tied to sacrifice. Real love wasn't conditional. My rebuilt bond with Stella was stronger. Even my relationship with my parents held more honesty. The cabin, once my solo refuge, was now the heart of our chosen family. On our 1-year engagement anniversary, Liam and I sat on our deck. "What do you think was the real turning point for you?" he asked. I considered it. "It wasn't one single moment," I said slowly. "It was a slow, painful dawning. The realization that my worth isn't measured by what I give or sacrifice. That real love doesn't require erasing myself." The journey had been arduous. But in letting go of damaging beliefs, that love was earned through sacrifice, that family obligations trumped personal well-being, I hadn't become selfish. I'd become more authentically generous. My relationship with Liam flourished on mutual respect. My bond with Stella stronger. Even with my parents, more truth. We were all imperfect people, finding our way back. Looking back, that storm of betrayal, it didn't break me. It forged me. I learned that true strength isn't about bending to please others, but about honoring your own worth, your own truth. The quiet dignity I found in reclaiming my peace, in choosing my own family, in building a life on my own terms, that's a treasure no one can ever take away from me. And you know what? The view from here, it's pretty amazing. What about you? Has my story resonated with you at all? Have you ever had to stand your ground when important boundaries were crossed, especially with family? How did you find the strength to protect your peace, your truth? I genuinely would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice, your story, it matters. And if my journey connected with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe tap that notification bell so you don't miss another story of healing and resilience. If you feel moved to offer a little extra support, super thanks are always deeply appreciated and help us continue sharing these important stories. It's all part of the healing journey for so many of us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Remember, your worth is inherent. It's never measured by what others try to take from you or how they try to define you.